morning. It came to my attention last night because one of your wonderful classmates emailed me and was like, "These poems are great, but this one poem is like a little complex and long, and I'd like some help getting into it." And I realized, yeah, it is, and that would be Kaveh Akbar's "The Palace." And I have read that poem 1,000 times. I have shared it with other students. I've talked to Kaveh about it. So my experience with that poem is really different than anybody encountering the poem for the first time. And of course, I was always planning on bringing this poem into class. I don't know if I put it on your syllabus. I should have, but that's been the plan because, so Kaveh actually published this last winter. No, not last winter, last spring. But he published it just after we did the poetry unit last spring, and so I didn't get to actually use it in class. And I was really bummed about that because I knew about the poem before he published it, and I heard it before he published it. Sorry, this is so exciting. I get like kind of fangirly about poets and writers. So because he is a faculty member in the grad program I'm in, and he was my mentor, I got to know him a little bit last winter and at residency, and he read this poem, and the poem that I asked you to listen to and read, and it just, it had such an impact on me hearing him read it in the same room and watching him read it, and it, I'm sure he had done other readings with it, but it wasn't in the world yet. Like, it wasn't published, it wasn't everywhere yet, and it impacted me so deeply that I went to the bathroom after and just sobbed in a stall because I was so moved by this poem's sort of indictment of America, but also love for people and also consideration of what it means to be in this country and in this culture, what it means to choose something and all the losses that come with choice, right? There's just so much happening in the poem. But all of that is to say that my whole experience with the poem is more intimate, and I have had access to more information about it and understanding of it than someone encountering it for the first time. So I want to do what we would do in class, which is listen to it together and talk about, well, we don't get to talk live, but I would like to listen to it with you, and just like the other two poems, you'll hear it and see my responses. Maybe listening to it twice is a lot because that's 20 minutes because the poem is 10 minutes long. Maybe we listen to it once. Hopefully you'll listen to it on your own. I hope some of you already did. And then I'll respond. I'll talk about specific places where I think we might be able to see the tone, and talk about possible themes. Okay? Sorry, I look a mess. I just got out of bed and wanted to do this video message for you all right away before I got wrapped up in other parts of my day. Okay, so you should, as you are reading this poem, as you're listening to me or watching this video, also be reading along with the poem. All right, so the poem is at newyorker.com. I'm going to go ahead and read the sort of little review or words above it by Kevin Young. There are no good kings, only beautiful palaces. Kaveh Akbar's long poem, The Palace, is both magical and matter of fact. All right, two things there. The magical part, I think maybe we could say that that's the mood, like maybe the poem feels magical to us, the readers. The matter of fact part, that's where we get the tone, right? Kaveh is using a matter-of-fact tone in the delivery of this. In that way, even though the poem is magical and otherworldly, it's similar to this documentary poem by Carolyn Forche that we listened to, The Colonel, because there's these kind of reportings, these just like delivery of facts, kind of, right? Even though he couches those facts or disguises them in magical ways. Okay. The voice is by turn declarative and distraught, more tone. The poet invokes Keats, and Keats answers back. Keats is another poet who died very young, from a long time ago. The palace also captures the pleasure of everyday life as both a delight and a distraction, a simple meal, its possibilities and power. I think this is a good poem for now because in quarantine, I don't know about you, but I've been re-encountering some small delights of daily living. Heaven here is a place too, a place not always seen, but suffused with wishes. The poem's leaping form is one of forward movement, fragment, and enjambment, of stepping toward and stepping around its chief subject, America. In Akbar's poem, America is a country both welcoming and withholding, a land where teens wear t-shirts that promise the obliteration of other places. It is a lettuce spinner, sizzling oil, a goat or a dream on a spit. The dead keep warm under America, while my mother fries eggplant on a stove, Akbar writes. There may not be any kings in America, but there are families. There is a father who immigrates, as most do for opportunity, and a mother for whom opportunity is an earthly garden of goodness. Akbar's poem is about them too. Finally, the poem is about love, including the poet's love for a country in which he is always elsewhere, with poetry the ultimate homeland. Okay, so I hope you read that description at the beginning because I think it gives a lot of insight into the poem. It certainly does it more eloquently than I will when I ramble about the poem after this. I'm going to go get some water. So listen to this, stare at my couch, and I will be back.
The Palace. It's hard to remember who I'm talking to and why. The palace burns. The palace is fire, and my throne is comfy and square. Remember, the old king invited his subjects into his home to feast on stores of apple tarts and sweet lamb. To feast on sweet lamb of stories. He believed they loved him, that his goodness had earned him their goodness. Their goodness dragged him into the street and tore off his arms, plucked his goodness out, plucked his fingers out like feathers. There are no good kings, only beautiful palaces.
That's an important line.
Who here could claim to be merely guilty? The mirror. My life growing monstrous with ease. To be an American, my father left his siblings, believing he'd never see them again. My father wanted to be Mick Jagger. My father went full ghost, ended up working on duck farms for 30 years. Once, asleep, a couch, he coughed up a feather. America could be a metaphor, but it isn't. Asleep on the couch, he coughed up a white duck feather. There are no doors in America, only king-sized holes. To be an American is to be a scholar of opportunity. Opportunity costs. Every orange I eat disappears, the million peaches, plums, pears I could have eaten, but didn't. In heaven, opportunity costs. In her heaven, my mother grows peaches, plums, pears, and I eat them till I pass out and wake up in heaven, wake up and eat some more. I couldn't dream of doing anything by halves. Whatever it is, I'll take the whole bouquet. Please, and soon. Are you still listening? Every person I touch costs me 10 million I'll never meet. Persons and persons, inside each a palace on fire. Inside each, Mick Jagger wearing a gorilla pelt coat covered in ostrich feathers. He calls it camouflage. What's gone but still seen? Luckless soldiers, the pencil pushed slowly through my brother's tricep. What's gone but still seen? He didn't scream, just let his eyes water. If I smile even a little, they start sharpening their swords. And they're right. This is no time for joy. This is no time. The palace burns. Pencil pushes slowly through my brother's brother. What's still but seen gone? A king governs best in the dark, where you can't see his hands move. A king doesn't see us watching the king. We sew God's initials into our work shirts while our babies get thinner. The babies do not see us watching our babies get thinner. Our babies born addicted to fear of babies. Our babies gumming apples in the sun. America, the broken headstone. America, far enough away from itself. Hello, this is Kaveh speaking. I wanted to be Keats, but I've already lived 4 years too long. Hello, this is Keats speaking. It is absurd to say anything now, much less anything new. Hello, this is no one speaking. Hibiscus bloom, wet feathers, a tiny thumb of ash. To be American is to be a hunter. To be American. Who can be American? To be American is to be what? A hunter? A hunter who shoots only money. No, not money. Money. I have a kitchen device that lets me spin lettuce. There is no elegant way to say this. People with living hearts that could fit in my chest want to melt the city where I was born. At his elementary school in an American suburb, a boy's shirt says, "We did it to Hiroshima, we can do it to Tehran." At his elementary school in an American suburb, a boy's shirt says, "We did it to Hiroshima, we can do it to Tehran." The take-home trophy, roasted goat baying on the spit. A boy's shirt says, "We did it to Hiroshima, we can do it to Tehran." He is asked to turn his shirt inside out. He is asked his insides out. After he complies, his parents sue the school district. Our souls want to know how they were made. What is owed? These parents want their boy to want to melt my family. And I live among them, palace throne, comfy, burning. I draw it without lifting my pen. I draw it fat as creation, empty as a footprint. How to live, reading poems, breathing shallow, spinning lettuce. America, the shallow breath, how to live. The shallow trap, America catching only what is too small to eat. The dead keep warm under America while my mother fries eggplant on a stove. I am not there. I am elsewhere in America. I am always elsewhere in America, writing this, writing this, writing this. English is my mother's first language, but not mine. I might have said Bottom John. I might have said Khura Hafiz. Sizzling oil, great fists of smoke, writing this. The first insect drawn by man was a locust. Art is where what we survive survives. Sizzling oil, great fists of smoke. Art, sizzling oil. Art, my mother fries eggplant. The first insect drawn by man survives. Who to kiss the prom queen? Brain pulsing like an oyster. Who to win the war? America rises, covered in the tiny grains of its own making. Fresh bread pocked with flour dust. Mistyping in an email, I write, I lose you so much today. Then leave it. Forbidden mercies, windmills spinning around like drunk teenagers. Any document of civilization is also a document of barbarism, says the palace, burning. I, a man, am what I do not say. America, I warn you, if you invite me into your home, I will linger, losing, kissing my beloveds frankly, pulling up radishes and capping all your pens. There are no good kings, only burning palaces. Lose me today, so much.
So if we were in class together, it would be hard to do this because we don't have a printout of the poem. But I think I would have us all look at it on our phones, so we had some of the writing in front of us, or like share computers or whatever. And I would have us pull out, first find 3 images that you find particularly powerful. His father coughing up a feather, his mother and the plums, his mother frying eggplant while the dead sleep under America. What does that mean, the dead sleep under America? This is where we have the great brilliance of this poem, the very strange, surreal images next to the quotidian. Quotidian means daily, everyday details, very small daily things like having coffee, the mail coming, right? The sort of normalcy of everyday small details. That's the quotidian. And so we have the lettuce spinner next to the consideration of opportunity cost in this poem, right? I have to go back and look at the poem to see exactly what the lettuce spinner is right next to. But in order to understand this poem, we also have to understand the concept of opportunity cost. Opportunity cost, I believe, is a business concept, and basically it just means that every chance you take, every direction you walk in is a direction you didn't walk in, right? So if I have 2 choices in life, right? If I choose to go in this direction, I'm literally walking away from the other opportunity, right? If you choose to be in a monogamous relationship with one person, you're saying no to all those other people you could have been with, right? And he says that in the poem, not in that way, but he says every person I touch is however many more people I can't touch, right? So every opportunity cost sort of discusses the finiteness of our own energy and capacity as people and humans in the world, and in the business sense, I think it's sort of like, what do you give up by pursuing one venture over another? But what he's using it in a really clever way in this poem to talk about, humanity and love and choices in life, you know, in a more figurative way and in a more emotionally driven way. I feel like I had another point to make about that was important. Opportunity cost. Oh, okay. So what is America driven by, right? I mean, I think that that's a really important thing to consider right now in the middle of this pandemic and crisis. We have a president who is encouraging, in the middle of a pandemic where death rates are rising daily, encouraging us to reopen the country, which means, you know, non-essential. We already have essential workers, and the workers that are frontline at this pandemic, are you know, people in the health field, are already at risk daily. Some of you who are still working are at risk. And the more people we have, the more people who are exposed to this thing, the more they can spread it. And yet, for the sake of profit, we have a president who, the profit of rich people who are already rich, not us, I'm scared about what's going to happen when the semester's over. I don't have a job lined up, and I still am more frightened about the possibility of carrying this disease and spreading it to other people. I obviously don't want to get it, but I'm less worried about me than I am about being a person to infect other people. And I would rather be frightened of money than frightened of killing someone, right? And yet, that's not the perspective of our country at the moment. I don't mean the people, I mean our government. And that really underlines how money-driven and money-fueled America has become, how capitalistic America has become. And I think this poem is a really nice check-in about that. I mean, Kava wrote this, I think he was writing it for a little while before it was published, but I heard it, like I said, not this past winter, the winter before that. So he wrote this long before we were in this situation, and yet it so fully applies today. It's a really important thing to consider. So what I think is interesting about this poem also is the way he uses repetition as he moves through the poem and refers to America. The repetition of America, he'll make declarative statements about America, blah, 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 America, you are this, you are that. Who else does that? Ginsberg. So in the same way, I think I'm going to give you another assignment. That's not what this this video was meant to do. I'm going to keep talking to you, but I'm going to go pour my tea because it is boiling. So what I want you to think about is, how is this poem in conversation with Ginsberg's poem America, in the same way that I asked you to consider how Whitman and Hughes's poems are in conversation. I think that the direct addressing of America, speaking to America directly, and then speaking about America and describing America, Kava very much is doing that, I think, in nod to an association with Ginsberg. So I'm interested to know how you feel about that, what you notice about that, what that feels like to you, intellectually, but even in your body. Like, how do you feel about that as you read? Where do you feel this poem as you read? That's another way to get into poems. Like, how do you experience it, and where do you experience it as you're listening to a poem? I would also really encourage you to listen to this poem at least twice, and like listen to it. I was lying down for some of it, and somehow stilling my body and allowing the poem to sort of saturate me was a really effective way of climbing into the poem for me. I as I said, I've heard this, been listening to it for, you know, a year and change now, and taught it many times, and I still am learning new things about it every time I listen. So as far as tone goes, I think there's a lot of different tones in this poem. Tone is such a hard thing for me to answer because I don't ever think anything is one thing. Like, I think you'll see that when you get your rubrics back from me. Like, I don't even give you one category often. Often I'm like straddling lines in your rubrics because what is the sureness of one thing? I can never really settle on that. So it's hard for me to say Kava Akbar's poem, The Palace, has a tone of a critical tone towards the United States. That's not how I feel about the poem, because the poem is full of pain, it's full of love, it's full of wonder, it's full of longing. I mean, those are just some. I mean the author. I mean the speaker of the poem is full of those things. Of course, I as the reader experience those things, but I experience them through the speaker's eyes, and so that's what I mean by tone. Like I said, tone is the author or speaker's attitude about the subject or content, and mood is the readers and listeners' response to or feeling about the piece, or how, what mood it invokes in you. Evokes in you. Yes, evokes, not I-N. So there's a lot to think about with this poem. I don't think it's just one thing. I think the theme is also not one thing. I mean, it's a 10-minute long poem. It's pages and pages and pages long. It's so long that I cannot find a copy to print out, and it would take me hours to copy and paste it from the website onto a document, and I'd probably get it wrong, and I'd have too much respect for his work as he means it to be experienced to try to do that. It's also so long that the New Yorker, which is where it's published, they created a new digital space on their online platform for this poem. It's like if you had a house and you built an addition on a new room to accommodate a piece of art. That's what they did, but digitally for Kava Akbar for his poem, which is so cool. Anyway, so lots of themes, lots of tone, lots of different possibilities of tone, lots of different messages in this poem. If we could boil it down to an overall message, I would have to think more about what I think that is. I think it's I think the message is, what do we forfeit in order to gain something else? Like, what do we choose, and what is the cost of choice? And what is the cost of too much choice? And I think the key, I feel most settled landing there, because at the end, he writes that email and he mistypes and says lose you instead of love you. And so we have this recurring theme of loss. Like, what am I giving up in order to go? Like, what road am I not traveling in order to travel down this road? And in a way, his father coming to the United States for a dream that wasn't fulfilled because he wanted to be a rock star, but was a duck farmer, or worked on a duck farm. In addition to those two dreams being in contrast, what other dreams did he give up from leaving his homeland, right? And then homeland is mentioned, how it's not America, but where is it? Is it a specific place? Is it a place we can point to on a map, or is it a figurative place? The person at the beginning that I read you, their description suggests that place is poetry. So this poem is surely very complex. It is meant to be complex. This poem was not written in a night or an evening. It came about over, I think, years of labor. And so it's okay if it takes us a little longer than one reading or one listening, one experience of it to understand it. It will continue blossoming and opening up for you. But I'd love to hear your initial thoughts, and I'd also love to know if this was helpful to experience it with me. This video is now 30 minutes long again. I wanted it to be a little shorter. I feel like I wanted to make another point. I think I lost it. I think it was about tone and the piece. I don't remember. I just realized this is not glass. Cool. Now I feel less scared of breaking it. Okay. That's it for now. We'll talk over email.